Wow, hello folks, Sam here, Reloved Guitars Workshop. I've got an old tuning fork. Don't even know if it works. Maybe. Oh, I can hear it, it's a C, but it's a bit rusty, so it's probably affects how it plays. But anyway, been busy today. I've completed 2 wonderful guitars, but here we have the third of today's guitars. Third of today's 3 is going to be full on. So may I introduce to you Vern's Chapman ML-2 Classic made in Korea, and it's a gold top version of the ML-2, which I've seen 2 of already in the Reloved Guitars Workshop. And so Vern came to me via Facebook, and I guess maybe via YouTube as well, somewhere. I could sometimes lose track a bit. I'm going to pull this out and give you a fly through. But yes, so Vern got in touch with me, and I guess he'd seen my videos of taking care of the nuts on a couple of other Chapman ML-2s, and so he contacted me and asked would I set this one up for him. And it's a beaut, it's a lovely looking guitar, and it has some superb Seymour Duncan pickups, and these are the USA Blues, vintage blues model. It's very difficult to find. I've tried to find them online because I like the sound of them so much, but it's very difficult to find them. You seem to find them, but they're all black, or you can find zebras which are slash copies or slash pickups, slash inspired pickups. Anyway, I haven't been able to find exactly the same set in the zebra thing, but I really would like to treat myself to some of those for an upcoming birthday, which is very soon. So you have a no, it's not. It's one or the other. You have a out of phase switch here on the tone, and you've got 1 volume and 2 tones. I think no, 2 volumes, 1 tone. I can't remember now. But the out of phase switch was really nice. It's the sort of is it Peter Green sort of thing. Anyway, what have we got? We've got Chapman crowdsource designed guitar. This is the second in the series. I think it's up to 3 now. Rob Chapman has designed these in conjunction with preferences stated by his fan base, and it's a through neck guitar, mahogany looking thing, with a satin kind of finished neck, so it's got a direct line with the gloss finishes, and the neck is in satin, and has an ebony fingerboard, dot markers on the side here, E8 infinity marker here. It's 24 frets and through body stringing, which is not the greatest thing in the world for sustain, but it's functional and it does the job. Got Grover tuners. There you have them. Nice condition, very small buttons on them, and Chapman signature on the top there, ML-2. And this one, Vern was telling me that he basically played 2 or 3 of these and settled on this one. He bought the guitar online, or I guess online. I think it was from Anderton's, and he wasn't happy with the setup, so he went into the shop and picked this from a number of guitars, and but since has discovered that in fact the settings over the nut aren't quite right, and so that when he noticed that when you press down on the 3rd fret, the thing kind of frets out, or bashes out on the 1st fret, so he wasn't too happy with it. So he wants a bit of action lowered on here, and he wants the frets levelling and making sure they're all absolutely spot on. Now, one of the first things I noticed in this guitar when I saw it is there is a bit of relief. Or is there? No, it's a tiny bit of relief, but not a lot. Probably could use a bit more. And I also noticed that I think the the heights over the nut are slightly different on all of them, so I think it's probably worth having a good old solid look at that. And then I've got another nut to replace it with anyway. It's going to be quite interesting because these are really, really finely, the joint is really nicely made, and taking this off and putting another one on, we have to really try hard to get that joint as well done if we do need to take it off. But I'm going to not assume anything. I'm going to go off camera a minute, have a little playthrough again. I played it the other night and I enjoyed it. Nice thing about looking down the neck of the guitar under certain lighting conditions, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see straight away what kind of relief you've got in the neck. Now obviously this is under gravity, so it's accentuating that. It's not going to be the same when the guitar's either on its back or, for that matter, in strapped up playing position. So I'm just going to evaluate it before I start. As I say, I played it the other day in the office on my way back after having picked it up, but I'm going to have a sort of play through now. Like I say, I'm going to save you from having to listen to this. I'll do a separate sound sample, by the way, of the pickups for a couple of people on my Facebook page who wanted to hear it, but it's a pity because when you're not a great player like me, it's not the greatest demonstration of really good pickups. All I can tell you is I knew from the minute I heard them that my playing felt better than it normally does, and I think that's a really good sign, or a really good indication that the pickups you've got are good quality if your own playing sounds better than it usually does, and also if it inspires you to play a little bit better than you do. I think that's the other thing. It's quite a good sign. So I'm just going to have a bash around without any sound to begin with. Vern also wanted to replace this 10s with 9s on here. Definitely some zinging going on. The gaps over these strings over the first fret aren't huge. They're quite good. I suspect it's around about 0.25. That's 0.25 of an inch. 0.025. That's not what I want. I want 0.25 of a millimetre. Yeah, it's just under that actually. So that's a bit tight. So Vern's concern was that this first, the low E was cut too deep in the slot, and I think I agree with him. It's causing that bit of sizzing at the occasionally on open chords. So I'll measure it on its back as well as standing upright. Also, we've got an action at the 12th fret of, just have a quick look, just 2.2 millimeters, and then about the same at the 24th fret. So 2.2 millimeters. I'm going to write some of these things down like I like to. I'll put it on the board behind you. So Chapman, 12th fret E. What did I call it? Quick look. Two millimeters. 2.0 millimeters, 12th E, and 24th fret, 2.2. 24th E, 2.2 millimeters. Over the first fret, low E at first fret low E, and it was 0.0 I reckon it's 0.2 millimeters, possibly even less, but anyway, the point here is that I would think a guitar like this could comfortably handle 1.5 millimeters action at the 12th or 24th even, so there's a little bit of action to lower here. I'll measure it on both sides anyway, but again the playing position is probably best to get the best view. The E string is at, the high E, sorry, is at 2 millimeters as well. So I'm going to, high E and low E is also 2, 0, 0, and that's at the 24th fret. And that's 2 again. So both places 2.0 millimeters. Okay. And the action over, hard to tell, I've used a gauge for that. Yeah, so I have to say it's not altogether bad, but there are one or two things I've noticed about this as well. It's got some quite big dent, or not dents, some string impressions on the frets. But otherwise it's pretty good all round. I enjoyed playing it the other night. I think it will feel very different for Vern after putting 9s on it. That's going to substantially change the way it feels. But also I'm going to be very, very restrained and only take half a millimeter off the action. Now the question is, could we do that without making any adjustments or adjusting the fret level? And the answer might be yes. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Let's put this on clean sound. That's the famous Peter Green sound in the middle position with the thing pulled out. I bring this up, you notice I'm always constantly aware of where the headstock is on the guitars I work on. Lots of power out of those. That's both bridge and neck all together. Neck. And bridge. Two together. Pull. it takes a lot of power out of it, a lot of the bass is gone. And we could change the tone a bit. Bring out the tune a bit, but maybe there's new strings, I don't know. Just interested to see. I lost track of where I put my phone. Just going to have a look for get a tuner a minute. I just want to check and see what happens when I press these notes. It's the G that does it. So I'm looking at this and it doesn't seem to be too extreme, but I'm going to really watch carefully, because I've noticed in the past from the previous ones I've done, for some reason these guitars seem susceptible to any tiny excess of height over the first string to create that out of tune open chord sound. So if I tune that to the open G, and it takes a tiny bit of handful of strings to make it sound out of tune. Now, it's got a lot to do with technique, of course, but if you're having to press hard to get the strings onto the frets, then it doesn't help. And they go out. They seem to go out very quickly. So getting this exactly right is really important. And then being careful with your technique is another thing. Okay, so as I say, this is it's not bad at all. I enjoy playing this already, but like I say, it's got just a little over 2mm, so could go down 0.7 to 1.5 comfortably and still play well. Now, if I go too far with that, add that to the 9s and the thing will feel completely different for Vern. So I'm just letting you know in advance. I'm going to try and remember those two things will combine to make the guitar feel very differently. So I think I'll stick to the 0.5 lowering action and the 9s, and the whole thing will be different. And as I'm going, I'll check this note. If this can get this right without removing the nut, I'd prefer to do it. And if there's no problem with it, I'm not going to remove it. Okay, so let me put this on the bench and start to have a look, and I'll come back to you in a minute when we're ready to go. Rightio, let's go. It's time to get stuck into the Chapman ML-2. So I have taken off what have I taken off? Strings. Oh yeah, taken off the strings, and now it's a case of just getting the whole of the fretboard masked off. I've levelled the neck to make sure it's flat. I've pre-cut some masking tape here, which makes the job a lot easier. I'm going to find where I put the rest of the masking tape. Okay, where did I put it? No. There it is. Right, and I'm going to turn the phone off so it doesn't mess up. Right, sorry, just interference there. So here we go. Now I'm not sure, as of yet, I'm not sure about this nut, so I'm going to leave it on for the time being. And we're going to see what we've got at the end of this and see whether this nut really is a problem or not, because I'm not sure it is. But I don't know, can't be sure. Anyway, so the purpose of all of this then is, compared to some of the ones I've been doing over the weekend, this seems a bit like an easy one. Back to the more familiar territory of setups as opposed to full refret and all that. But yeah, the purpose of this one is to level the frets, which I know aren't level, and then to I know they're not level because I just did a quick test, but to level the frets and then to just set the action down a little bit lower and restring with 9s, and then set the intonation as precisely as we can, and then hopefully this will be a bit easier and more fun to play. If the nut is too low at the first fret, it gives an action too low at the first fret, then we'll replace it with I've got a Tusk QL, whatever it's called, black one, which probably suits this guitar a little bit better. It's got more black components than it has white, but we shall see. Now this guitar, in terms of the masking the neck, this guitar has got 24 frets, so it means that not only do we probably just run out of tape right near the end, it also means that the tape we use has to be that little bit thinner to get right down to those last frets, so I end up usually having to do a bit of extra cutting as we go through. But if you're new to all of this, the idea of levelling frets on a guitar like this is something that I came across a while ago, just when I was really trying to make budget guitars first and foremost play better than they did. And what's true of most, in fact not most, pretty much every single brand of budget guitar is they come out of the factory without the frets being level, and they tend to just play, their setup is such that they're just about playable with whatever set of uneven frets they are produced with. And the reason all guitars have uneven frets is because you can't get them microscopically level when you install frets. It's really difficult, because it's sort of quite a clumsy mechanical process. You get whatever the process gives you, so the frets will be more or less in place, but they will always be some higher than others. For example, on the Dion acoustic that I did this weekend, refretted, a couple of the frets that I put in were quite high and required fairly extensive levelling by comparison to a lot of the others around them, which all tended to be more level. And it's just that was caused by the restrictions or the constraints of the technique I was using, because refretting an acoustic in a workshop like this is quite quite a challenge, because you have to get your clamp or your fret call into the neck, into the sound hole itself, which is by no means easy, and then to get enough force into it without damaging the guitar to push in the fret. I had to use about 3 different methods or 3 different systems in the entire process of fretting that guitar, and that just means that 1 or 2 of the frets just didn't go in as far and as well as some of the others, and the result was, when you come to levelling, you have some frets that stick out higher than the others and need more of the material taking off to bring them back to level. So that's true of all guitars when they're manufactured. Some expensive custom guitars are put through a machine called a plec, which I've not seen in the flesh, but I've read about, which levels the frets, but does so apparently under playing conditions where the neck is under certain forces, or the machine measures the geometry and the state of the neck when it is loaded with strings and being played effectively, and then recreates that without strings, so that you can level the frets with the guitar in some sort of playing configuration. As I've said a few times, and explanations still haven't really clarified it for me, but I don't understand really how that can work. What we're doing now is a simpler version of that process. So this is levelling the frets by just making the neck level first without being loaded. If it's true that the plec machine or such things is more accurate, it's a very, 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 very small amount of difference compared to doing it this way. And if it does make a difference, then I guess there's people who would be happy to have that extra degree of accuracy. But since I started, this way achieves a great deal without it being same equivalent cost of the plate treatment, and so it's pretty effective as is. So I'm just going to mask off other parts of this guitar. It's a good condition, modern finish, so I can use this tape without too much fear of it doing anything bad to it. The reason I'm masking this part of the guitar as well is because by the time I come to shine these frets up, I'll be flashing the sandpaper around quite a bit, and basically I don't want any of it to scuff any of the finish on this guitar. It's really around this area here where it's at risk, whether it's the loose end of some sandpaper or whether it's the tail end of the sanding beam or fret leveling thing. So it's just a matter of making sure it doesn't get, it's got some, what's that glue or goo on there? I need to solvent that off. Some sticky. Right, so this is just, for my liking, taking care of some of the finish around here. And it also helps to stop some of the dust going inside the guitar. Okay, what matters is that this pickup here is, the neck pickup is below the level of the frets, which it clearly is. That's the most important thing. Okay, so I know that the neck is flat because I've used a truss rod to flatten it. And what I'm going to do is I want to measure the neck, the unevenness of the frets, and I'm just doing this more or less for my own personal interest, but it's a kind of reference point really. So I've been using a StewMac rocker, and I'm doing it with the neck under gravity. Okay, so this neck is it's level under gravity. You could do it in this position. It's very, very, very minute amounts of difference under its own weight. If you wanted, you could put a one little thing under here that just takes the weight off it, or it's up to you. But it's starting off almost. What matters is it starts off level. So if you do put a support under there, you're basically making sure. Making sure this is level before you start doing your work, and that is it's supported and it's level, so I'm comfortable with that. Now we take the fret rocker, and the idea of the fret rocker is you check frets relative to each other. It's not an absolute measure, it just tells you in relation to each other whether the frets are higher or lower. It doesn't tell you which one's truly high or which one's low, it just tells you a relative terms. I have a horrible feeling. I was going to say, a feeling I've unearthed some limitations. No, this is straight. I was really worried about the. I got a worn out one of these recently, and it was telling me false readings. Okay, so I've got a bit of rocking noise over here, and it's just showing this part of the fret as being higher. It isn't necessarily higher, as I said, it's relative. So you may find that the next one shows up as high, and what really matters is when you come down to the end of it, is when you level the frets, it'll take care of it'll sort out for you which ones are high and which ones are low. You don't need to know, providing you're leveling them all together with a radius block or a leveling beam. Tiny bit there. So you can hear the clicking when you hit on the slight uneven parts. It's not massively severe, but it's noticeable. So that when guitars are manufactured, then if they're very expensive, they can get put into the plec machine, which levels their frets, and that means you come out with a guitar with beautifully level frets, and therefore you probably find you get much cleaner notes all the way up and no buzzing anywhere. And that's what we're aiming to do here. Obviously using a simpler technique, and some would say slightly less accurate technique, but nonetheless one that's doable in your own workshop. So you can see that this is, well, it's probably hard to see at the moment, but this is showing up uneven frets all the way up. One of these here is quite substantial. I'm going to just make that a bit of a heavy mark. That's going to flatten down quite a lot. So pretty much every one almost has got some relative unevenness. Some all the way across like that one. Yeah, it's quite a high percentage, I have to say. Now we're switching over to the shortest edge on the fret rocker, and again the whole of that fret showing up as uneven relative to the others around it. Although what I said earlier on is the case, that this checking is only showing you what's uneven, where frets are uneven relative to their neighbours. It doesn't tell you anything absolute. What you will notice is that where that unevenness shows up really strongly, when we come to run the fret levelling file or the radius block over it, you'll find that fret will take the block will take most metal off that particular fret, so that marking will correspond to having to take off some metal. And the more extreme, or the heavier the mark I've made, i.e. the more uneven it shows as, the more metal is likely to take off. Okay, last check. Okay, so we've got 24 frets, and I can only check 22 out of the 24. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the highest ever score. Wow. That's 100% of the frets. So this, you can see this is touching pretty much every fret. Sorry about the noise. What's good about using this little beam here is that it's using 220 sandpaper as well, so it means that our polishing process is going to be fairly easy, because there's not an awful lot of scratches to pick up. This is much finer. Now what I'm seeing is there's a couple of frets here which are substantially lower than everything else, so there's a slight dip, or they're pushed in further than anything else, so they're not yet being touched by the beam. And there goes the nut. That's clean removal, so we can put in the other one, solve that problem. It just takes a little tap for the nut to come out. It's nice using a beam like this, because it is so delicate. You're doing very little removal. Now what we'd expect to see is in the places where the line was heaviest, where we drew and marked the unevenness, where that line is heaviest, we would expect to see a flatter piece, or flatter shape of, the fret would start to look flatter because we'd be taking more metal off. Okay, so that's doing all right. We've still got a couple of frets here that are not yet in the loop. The problem with a low fret, or a couple of low frets in a row, is that a low fret creates effectively a high fret, so the same problem occurs. A low fret will then cause the string to ground out on the relatively higher fret next door, even though that fret may not actually be high in comparison to all the rest of them on the guitar, relative to the one next to it, because the one next to it's low. Okay, I'm going to call that just about on. Right. Okay, that's good enough for me. So there we have it, 100% uneven frets, relative uneven frets. Again, no real surprise. Most guitars have a lot. That one had quite a lot. So the next part of the process is to mark off these frets, which have now all been scraped with the 220 grit, and now the important bit is to reprofile them. And the reason for this is when you take a normal shaped fret, which is an arch shape, because it's a smooth arch, the intonation point, or the point where the string sits, is right at the top of the arch. When you level them, you flatten the top of the arch, and what that does is it effectively moves the intonation point closer to the bridge, which means your intonation will go out unless you reshape the fret. And reshaping the fret then repositions the intonation point back onto the top of the fret, which puts it in its correct place in relation to the bridge. So to do this, I think these are sort of medium jumbo frets. I'm going to use a concave file, diamond coated file, and I'm just going to gently run it across the top of the fret, and it cuts away the flat spot, if you like. It cuts away the outside edges of the flat spot it brings it in towards the centre, and if you get it right, leaves you with a reprofiled fret with a tiny thin line of marker pen running along the top. And that piece of marker pen is really critical, because as long as we leave each of these frets with that piece of black marker on the top, it tells us that the relative levelness that we've just achieved is still there, because we haven't done anything to the very crown of the frets, or the very top part, but we've reshaped it. And that little black mark becomes effectively, that's the very crown of the fret, and that's where the intonation point will sit. So I'm going to do all of these, save you from watching it because it's kind of tedious and repetitive. So I'll come back when they're all done and we can move into the polishing stage. Okay, so we have all of the 100% uneven frets all reprofiled. So now we're on to the next bit, which is to take some sandpaper and a block and some fingers, and the object of this now will be to sand out all the marks left by the levelling beam, but also by the crowning file. And the crowning file and the levelling beam, the levelling beam was 220, which left some marks on there, and then the crowning file is 300, which has taken off most of those scratches. The only scratches at 220 will be right on the very top of this. So we have to imagine we're working with 220. We're going to take this 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to use maybe 4 pieces, one of them by hand, scraping over the frets here, and once I've used up one piece, I'll maybe switch to a pointed block, which allows me to just kind of run over the top. And I'm going to keep going with that until we get right the way through those layers of, through this piece of sandpaper, and then I'm going to switch to a set of micro mesh papers, which will then run all the way through from 1500 to 12,000, and that will bring us to a polish, a shine. So I'm just going to take the volume right down because it's noisy and you don't want to be deafened by this. So here's what I do. I'm just going to reposition so everything's kind of where I want it to be. I might just do, because, well, just because I might just mask off a bit of this around here. I don't want to scratch any of the headstock finish. Just gives me an extra little bit of extra little bit of cover. Just in case the sandpaper skips. It doesn't hurt to have a bit of extra cover on there. That way we don't have to worry about anything. Okay, so back to where we were. The other way. Messy, so you can see why masking tape helps to keep some of the glue off. Dust mainly, but keeps everything cleaner. Okay. Good. Now I'm going to switch to the lock and now we've got masking tape come unhooked there, so I'm just going to go around and cover that off again. If you ever see the finish or the fingerboard coming through, stop and retake. So realistically, that's probably very close to being done insofar as there are no more scratches on this thing from the 220 or the 300, and it's pretty smooth. So realistically, because we started off at a fairly fine grit to begin with, we can now move on to the micro mesh. Again, this is getting noisy and it takes a little while, so I'll turn the volume down. But we go from 1500 through to 12,000. go. Two more. And finally, the 12,000. There we have it. Right. Volume. Oh, wrong button. Oh, I don't know what I've pressed. Volume up. Right then, so we have the neck frets done. I'm just going to brush off this dust straight down onto the floor. And here we have it. I'm going to take off this masking tape off the body. Anything that sticks on, which occasionally it does, we'll take off with naphtha, which we've got plenty of. Sorry, you can't see. Plenty of. Sometimes you get a bit of leftover sticky. This is a mixture of the very light tack masking tape that that I use, and some other stuff, less light tack. Okay. Dust in my eye. Okay, so the low tack stuff comes off much easier. And there we go. What I'll do is I'll just take these bits off here and then flip it over and undo the other stuff, the rest of it from the back. We'll need a bit of a going over with solvent. Okay. So just flip it, and then we'll pull away the tape on this side. Kind of reverse of the way it went on, I suppose. Okay, get really boiled doing that sometimes. It's quite aerobic. I know it's not like a marathon, but hey. Okay, all of this off. Around the other side now, and then it will come off very nicely, and we're left with our level, beautifully levelled frets and lovely polished frets. So any of those marks, those sort of string marks that we had on the original frets down here have gone, leaving us with just a lovely clean set of frets, but most importantly, not just clean but level. For the first time ever. And I'm just going to again give this a quick going over now. Get some of the little bits of tape glue off here. Again, it comes off really quickly and easily. There you go. Lovely. In there. Come on. Then I'm going to make sure I do a quick once over on the rest of the body, because it picks up a lot of dust in that process. It's good to get it off. And before this one, when I finish this one, I'm going to use that lovely harmless beeswax based polish that I've got from Morrison's, which those in the know assure me is perfectly good and safe. Okay, so a quick once over with this, just to get any of the dust out of the cracks, and there is a little bit here and there that picks up, and the board will look a little bit dry after this, so I'll go over it with a bit of oil too, and over onto the headstock, get rid of the last couple of bits of sticky tape, and there we are. Again, it'll need a final polish at the end of the day, at the end of the job. But meantime, that's the frets now levelled, and because that's the main hard work done on that part, I can just go back in now, if I can find the oil, and just give it just a little bit of a, it's not exactly rehydration, but give it some oil back to the board. And note to self, must buy more oil because I've run out. So just a little bit rubbed in darkens that ebony back up again. Makes it look really nice. In fact, I could just whiz it all the way across and then go back over it and rub it in a little bit. Don't want to leave standing oil on there, just want it just to benefit from the darkening effect. Looks great. At this point in the game, actually, it's also a good time to just, if you spot them, any marker pen on the side of the frets, which is quite often the case. Often a little bit of marker pen. Just get the thumbnail in there and remove it. Quite easy to miss. You can then give the guitar back with everything looking great, and then a bit of a blob of marker pen down the side, which is not so fantastic. Okay, that's the board. Got quite a bit of marking on it, but I never trust ebony. I don't know why. It reminds me of that cheaper stuff that sometimes you used to get painted fretboards to make it look like mahogany, but they were just some sort of really soft wood. Okay, so since the nut came off, and since we've gone and bought one anyway, I'm going to put a new Tusk XL nut on here, and there's a little tab on it. I just want to file that level because I want that messing the thing up so it doesn't sit tidily. But I'll just glue this straight in place, and what I'll do, like always, is I'll cut downwards, get the slots right, rather than try and hoping to get it right now without having to do any cutting. I'd rather cut down through more nut than we need, and if necessary, reshape the nut with the file. So that's it. It fits beautifully, actually. Possibly a fraction narrower than the previous one, but it's absolutely fine. It will do just nicely. And I'm just checking how it sits. So it's good. It's going to get it tilted forward just slightly. It's quite high up right now, but that's fine. As I say, I'd much rather have more to work with than less. So I'm going to put a blob of super glue onto here, blob on the other side, and then a tiny bit on the lower face of the nut, so it will just hold against the front of the fingerboard. It's quite a lot, actually. Let's just get a blade in a moment. Ow! Just reduce the amount of glue on the front of that. It's just a tad too much. That's nice and flush with the end. Let's put a clamp on there for a minute or two, if I can make sure it holds comfortably. Don't want it to go anywhere else. Is that in place? Yeah, that'll do. Flush with the end. Beautiful fitting nut anyway. It's much better colour, black. Right, so all really that remains now is to put the hardware back on and restring it, and then we'll get into the cutting the slots and then the intonation at the end. So here's our set of 9s with the cutting pliers, which are here, and I'm going to in part use the downward pull of the strings to hold the nut in place. So these are early ball 9s. going to take that off for a sec. Flip it over, flip it through. In a way, I could probably, might make sense to put them all through in one go. I've really thought of that before. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it isn't. I don't really know. Make sure that nut hasn't dropped off. It's nice and tall, so it will require reworking, which is okay. It's great fun with doing this Reloved guitars thing because the number of strings I must have gone through, sets of strings already, it's just phenomenal. Now this one, for some reason, is struggling to go through. Yeah, it must have been through unbelievable numbers. And then I remember when a set of strings was a sort of luxury thing. Now it's great that I've always got some around. Mind you, I used to only buy the Elixir type, which was a luxury, something like 15 quid a set or whatever they were. These only bought are much cheaper, but they're not bad. I don't play hard enough to break strings, so I don't suffer from much in the way of breaking. In fact, I haven't broken any, as long as I can remember. The only time I ever break them is on some sort of stupid accident while fretting, while restringing. Okay, so Vern basically undid the nuts on here, the little grub screws, so that I was able to, or it made it easy to get the bridge off. And once it's back in, then I'm going to make sure I put the do those screws back up so that the bridge stays in place. So we're right down on the stops to begin with, and I'm just going to go through and get the first string on. What I could do actually, I'm going to start and stop here because I want to do. Somebody asked, could I do a stringing demonstration? Not like I'm the stringing expert, but I can show you what I learned from someone else. So I'll start and stop. Hey folks, you asked for a stringing demonstration, such as I know. And there are lots of people have different ways of doing it. There are no right or wrongs. That's the first thing. So don't let anyone tell you there is. The way I do it now just came from a guy on a Facebook page, a guy called Gavin Downey, who is a guitar tech for gigging bands in New Zealand, and Gavin's responsible for getting bands' strings changed in a hurry in between, or when they break on stage, or in between parts of the set, and he has to get the strings changed quickly and all the slack taken out of the strings so that they're ready to go and the musician won't be out of tune after the first 10 seconds of the song. So an example of how Gavin does it is this: he'll thread it through. In this case it's a through body stringing. My advice is, particularly with this kind of guitar or a Strat where it comes through the body, is make sure it's definitely all the way through, not caught on the edge, and then pull it sort of reasonably tight. Let's see if you can see what I'm doing here. Pull it reasonably tight. What you want to be doing is you've got to make sure that the ball or the barrel or whatever you call it on the string is up under in its ferrule or whatever that thing's called, so it's not hanging out or it's not catching on anything, because you don't want to start tightening it up and then find it jumps forward. So what I tend to do is I grab the string, pull it tight, I grab it at the first fret and I pull it back to the second fret and hold it. Then I wind it and I just make sure while I'm holding it, I can hold it loose, it doesn't matter. My intention is keep it under pressure and let the slack go underneath the string I'm holding. So the first time that this thing goes round and the slack is went underneath. Then what I'm going to do is just prop this neck a minute. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the slack upwards, because I'm then going to press down whilst keeping everything under tension. I'm going to press the string down, so now it goes underneath the slack or the spare bit. So we've got 1 over and probably 1.5 under, and that gives me a fairly simple wind on, and then I can just cut that off right there. So I'll do it again. I've already pre-threaded these strings so that they're already through the body. Again, down this end, I make sure the string is right up inside the ferrule, or whatever that hole is called, and I put it all the way through. And if I keep it under tension, I guarantee it stays in the same place. So all the way through, straight, under some tension, make sure it's in the bridge position, and then I grab it, pull back a fret's worth, and then just holding it in place, I kind of lift it higher actually, because I want the loose bit to go under first. As it goes under, I lift it up, keeping the string under tension. I then use my finger to point it down, so that as that loose string comes around again, this time the string I'm holding will go underneath, and then it falls into the slot, and I just leave it there for now and just chip that off, and then on to the third one, and so on and so on. So again, down this end, make sure it's all the way up, make sure it's across its bridge notch if you can, get it onto the peg, and so it's all nice and tight, everything's where it should be. And then again, just to repeat myself, back to this end, grab hold of this, back 1 fret, start winding. I'm just holding it pinched between my fingers, just raising it up a bit to make sure that that loose string goes underneath. Bend that up, keeping it under pressure, press it down, and then the second time it goes round it should go underneath, and if I have to push closer I'll do so to make sure it goes underneath, and then drop that into the slot. And it gets a bit more tricky when you switch hands, or you have to do it over the other side. I'll make sure it's through, get the other ones out of the way. So the same principle applies through the hole, pull it reasonably taut, grab it, pull it back 1. Now this time I'm going to hold it there, and I'm going to switch hands, and I'm going to wind towards me, and it gets all a bit messy at this point. Now that flipped over, and I really want it to be there, so I can now hold it like that, and make sure the string I'm holding is on top. The loose bit goes round on the bottom, and this time now, again, I press it down, and you can still see I'm keeping the whole thing under tension. And this time though, as I come round, the bit I'm holding is going to go under the slack, and it will go around a couple of times underneath. So it's 1 above and perhaps 2 or 3 under. There's a bit more this time, because why is that? Because I don't know why. So anyway, it doesn't really matter too many how many times it goes around. You don't want too much wound around the post, but there we go. So I'll just keep going because I want to just show you the stretching bit at the end. So I might as well stick this out for a minute, cutting off the spare bits. If this was a Stratocaster, I would be not cutting the slack, the excess off the end yet, because if on Strat, if you have to, actually no, on this guitar probably I shouldn't have done that, but on any, thinking about it now, thinking out loud, on any guitar where the string has to go through the body, the worst thing to do is to try and get a string that's already coiled, already been coiled around a tuning peg, to try and take that off and then use it again, and try and find a way of getting that to go through the body, it's really hard. It won't do it. So you'd find yourself having to cut. Ideally, I've messed this up a bit, you notice. I'm going to have to work to get this to go underneath. Stay there. Yeah, if you took these strings off now and tried to reuse them, you'd find that the bits at the end would be incredibly curly, and you'd never get those to go back through the body of the guitar if you wanted to restring it. Take them right off and restring. So, my advice, if you're doing it, it's usually with a Strat, that's the problem, not one of these, is to leave this all on while you're doing it, and only cut it at the point where you're confident that everything's worked out and there's no chance of you needing to take this off and restring it, and that's somewhere right at the end. Okay, so I'm just on the last one there, and again it's all a little bit slack and kind of making it up as you go along at this point. So I've noticed with these thin strings, if you hold this up and pull it too hard, it'll pull it right out of the slot at this point. So you just need to hold it taut enough to get the loose string, the free string, to go under. Then hook up the loose bit, and then the same thing applies now. Get your hands pressing right down there so the next lot goes underneath the spare with the excess. And there we have it. We don't want it right round the bottom of the peg, but we need it as close to the middle as we can go. If it's round the bottom, it will gradually work its way upwards towards the middle, and you'll get a load of slack for the first while you're playing it. Okay. So you probably can see from this that most of the time it's just about keeping it under a certain amount of tension. Then when you're convinced everything's good, snip off the ends, dispose of them somewhere where you're not going to chop them, stick them in the end of your fingers. A bit of fresh air in here now, it's getting steamy. Okay, so this is the next bit, final part of the little guide. Again, I could have pointed you to the one that Gavin did, but I don't remember where it is now, that's the only problem. So once you've got the strings on, next thing to do, and just do it straight away afterwards, is to get the strings and gently, with your thumb and fingers, just gently push and stretch out all of the natural stretchiness. The door's going to slam. Stretchiness in the string. You'll be amazed how much slack is picked up. And then go on to the next string. Oh, try not to drag it across the notch in the bridge. So this is just straight after putting the strings on. This is without adjusting the action. It's without tuning it even yet. It's without cutting the nut slots or setting them. And it's just doing, well, as soon as you put them on, just taking the slack away. Okay. And my experience, having done this a few times now, courtesy of Gavin's method, is that if you did this twice, tuned up to pitch in between, or prior to each time you did it, you're pretty much good to go. 3 times and you'll be absolutely safe to go and play live, and there will be no more stretch in it. Of course, what this can't do is compensate for you if your tuners are rubbish, or if they're always going to be letting the strings slip on them. But I didn't want to do that. Twang that off the thing. So while I'm at it, let me just get a rough tuning. This hasn't got enough height to play. I'll put just enough action in this to tune it up. Sorry, just enough playing action in it to tune it up, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so just briefly, that's call that tuned, and then we just go and do the bending thing again, second time, and when we come back to tune it, you'll notice how much it's gone detuned again, but it won't be as much as the first time if we'd have set it up to tune, and then third time there'll hardly be anything left in it. So, I mean, just Vern, I'm looking at this now, and I just dialed in the tiniest amount of action, and that's playing already with probably 0.5 millimetre or something, or less than 1 millimetre at the 24th fret. So it's quite incredibly low and playable just to begin with, but obviously it's not necessarily desirable. See, that's almost done. So there you have it, the tuning method made simple, and twice, and it stopped losing slack, so there you go. Okay, so we are just yanked another nail. This is horrendous. I'm going to end up not being able to use my fingers. Chop. Right. Keep snagging nails and breaking them off. I've had to super glue some already. I might have to do it again. Okay, so now we've got ridiculously high action down here. It's a result of putting a new nut in without taking any of it down. Well, I'm just looking at this, seeing it's quite a nice level thing, and I'm just wondering whether we should knock it out actually, and just work it down. And we need to take, let's just make sure we know what we're doing. We need to take about 1 millimetre off that, but let's go to 1.25 in total. So 1.25. Yeah, 1.25. So we knock at least 1 millimetre off that before we even start cutting. I'm going to do that. It saves me doing too much reshaping afterwards. It's a pity. Perhaps I should have just positioned it first and then not glued it, but hey. I've got my sanding block ready. I need 1 millimetre. We need to mark this and then knock the 1 millimetre off. I'll just put these off gently off sideways. Okay, so you're seeing it slightly past the back tip here. Ideally would have done it slightly differently. Comes off easily, thankfully. The glue isn't even dry. Look at that. I'll just wipe that clean now. It'll stick my fingers together, but it won't stick to the bloody thing it's supposed to stick to. How about that? Okay, so let me move this over, and I've got a thing to do it on. So I just want to, I'm going to get a knife and mark this so that we've got millimetres mark on here. I can do that by eye, as long as I can hold the thing in the right place. I want 1 millimetre off. Can I see that very well? Yeah. I don't have a means to mark it round the corner unless I plug that vise in. Okay, well, fingers are sticking now, thank you. Right, let's just go. I'm going to fire away. Hope this isn't too noisy. It's nice substance to sand down when you need to. Shouldn't take too long. It's about keeping it level really, that's the main challenge. It is very hard to keep a flat edge on it. It's always wanting to rock. It's probably, to get a square edge on it, or a straight edge, it's probably better to do it lighter. It's when you put too much force on it that it starts to go squirming all over the place. Okay, looking good. Slow. Still more to go. I don't think there's any quick way of doing this. You can hold it in place and do it with a straight edge, I guess. But, that keeps a few things. I suppose that's one way of doing it. Okay, it's sort of nearly done it. Oh weird, let's put a little lip on it. Let's try and get that straightened off. Nearly. Get there eventually. It's nice and square, that's for sure. More repetitions, less force. Almost there. More. Boring. More to go. Nice and square though, that's the only good thing. Keep going. Okay, so I'm going to stop at that. Dust everywhere. Okay, let's get this back in. Still got glue in there. Nice. Okay. Still a bit of height to get rid of, but let's clamp it under a bit of pressure. Okay. So off the side with these, and let's begin with the first one. And it's a set of 9s, so I'm gonna 42 at the end, 32 next, 24. 16, 11 and 9, the broken one to kick off with. Okay, so here we go. We've got our measure, or level, spirit level ready. So we're going to go for 0.25. And so straight away you can double check that and see it's miles off the mark. Put it under a bit of load and then check again. It's not so far. So we're not going to start with 9 now, are we, idiot? We're going to start with the 24, which is the D. So just move it off to one side and then just cut with this at a slight backward angle and then stop and re-measure. It's pretty much almost there on the mark. That's pretty good. So that filing has paid off really. So next one. Again, check that. Quite a bit of space. So with the 32, hoik it to one side and then cut with a backwards angle. Check again. And visually, that's just about on the mark there as well. It's turning out to be nice and easy. So 42. There's a bring. Needs to be tight enough to sit in the slot as deep as it will go, but loose enough to get it off. Move it. Come on, don't jam up. Okay, more to go. Getting there. Yep, that'll do me. So very quickly I'm going to drop these off the side and put some graphite under, although the nut is a kind of lubricated nut anyway, or self-lubricating. It doesn't hurt to add some graphite to the mix. And then what I really want to do straight away now is get that under proper tuned tension. Okay, so that's those first three taken care of, and we switch over to the next three and just flip those off the side here. We'll start with a G and move outwards from there. Again, don't assume anything, so we start by measurement. And we go with the G 16 outwards. See the shadow gives a pretty good indication. You can see the fresh air underneath the string, so you can do it quite well visually. Sometimes this tusk substance can be a real bugger to cut. I don't know why, it seems to just gum up at times. And it sort of grabs hold of the blade, which is most annoying. Very close now. Right, a couple more swipes and then we're there. It's got a lot more rim than it at first looks. I'm going to still down a bit more. Look, well, that's all the same, so I'll take that as red. Now the 11. check it. This is quite close, so that original cut with the nut was pretty good. So I don't want to overdo this. I've got to keep a careful eye on it. That's not cutting at all because it's not the saw. This is the place where you've got to really pay attention, because any overzealousness here and it will end up costing you the nut. Especially when it's all going so well. Very close. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and then finally the number 9, which is the finest of all. That's pretty close as it starts, so I won't have too far to go with this. That's very close too. One more tiny bit. To the feel. Don't mind about the tuning. Just want to make sure these strings are right sort of height over the top. This B has to come back a little. Which is the 16, and that's the 11. 11. It's really tight, so I don't run the risk of breaking that saw. Okay, stop there. Let's tune this. Okay, so sorry about that crunch. So we got see what we got in terms of the action here. We got minuscule action here. We got 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 1, or less than 1. Unbelievable. You know what, this needs a bit more work. Okay, so we're at the end of the Chapman, and it's a beaut, it really is. I love this. I'm so happy with how this turned out. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to do the intonation. Which means we're going to use the tuner to check to see that the string length for each of these strings is correct for the neck. So we first of all tune to the pinged harmonic, and then play the same note on the 12th fret. You can see that's flat. Check all these together. So much, but still flat. Sharp. Close. Close. That's close too. Sounds lovely, but it's fractionally out. Slightly flat, so I'm going to shorten the string length by well, we hope. Trouble is I can't tell which way it works, and never easy to work out. It's getting longer, right? I'll just shorten it. flat. I want to drag it closer. Clockwise to drag it closer. More clockwise. Tiny bit more clockwise. More room to adjust there. Spot on. Clockwise on G. Clockwise on G. Get the right bloody tuning head. Good. Tiny bit anti-clockwise on B. Don't like this tuner. Tune it forever, nothing happens. sharp. Sharp we want to get longer. So we go clockwise. There we have it. That is, ladies and gentlemen, the intonation of this lovely Chapman ML-2. Still got some stretch to go in the strings, but I'm not sure if that's what's going on here or whether one of these tuners is not really working very well, because it stores it up and then kind of give it a pull and it's way out. Sounds lovely though. Still got some stretching to do, I think. check something while I'm here. See what it's telling us in this position. Might have a little bit more work to do on this, I wonder. Thought we'd got it right, but maybe it's been on too long a day. Going to just check. That's interesting. Okay. Have another quick look at this. The action is still a bit too high for my liking on the first fret. It didn't seem like it earlier on, but maybe I need to get the lighting set up differently. Now, let's have a look what it says when it's lying on its side. Okay, so on its under gravity, it's saying it's more like, what's it saying it is? It's amazing. 0.3 under gravity, 0.3 under gravity, and then 0.6 in playing position. How bizarre. Actually, it's 0.5. So we have some more work to do here. And I need some different lighting to do it, because this isn't working for me. Anyway, I will not bore you. I'll get on and do this. Just make sure this is absolutely right, because I want this to play as brilliantly as it can play. And I know it can, or it is, but it needs. See, that's it's catching in there as well. I don't like that. Right, going to do this tweak and come back.